how's it going, everybody? My name is Mike from Box and Jackalope, and I am very excited to do another episode of the Kun-Lai Campfire, joined by regular co-host Skoll Shorties. We're actually joined by a very special guest today, Goliath the Dwarf. So welcome, Goliath.
Aw, thanks. And don't let the elf fool you guys. I am merely in a horde transmog disguise to infiltrate Orgrimmar to be with these guys.
Yeah, there's a little bit too much tension going on in the current storyline to have a dwarf around here, so we got a little worried about that. But we have some interesting stuff coming up. Approximately 4 days from now, as of recording this podcast, 8.2.5 is going to be released, and as far as I know, there's two cinematics that have been encrypted, but they're encrypted so people can't watch them yet. But I think a lot of stuff is going to go down very, very soon, mainly with Anduin Wrynn, Saurfang, and let's not forget our favorite war chief, Sylvanas Windrunner.
Insert groan.
Jackalope's cheering in the background right now for her. But, so, you know what? Let's start with Sylvanas, because she's gonna be the hot topic of the video, considering just... Well, that's kind of interesting, hot topic, because she's like an edgy character. But, she's gonna be the hot topic of the of the video, I feel like, where we have a lot to say about her. I'd actually like to start first this week, if that's okay about this. And I think there's a few ways they're gonna go with her character. First of all, I don't think she's gonna die. I think she's just gonna get exiled from the Horde, and we're gonna figure out what her greater purpose is, or whatever, in the next expansion pack. I think she's gonna do some pretty nasty shit that really exposes her, because I think the general Horde right now, some of them know about what she, really is, but a lot of them, I think she's been keeping it on the down low a little bit. Like, they don't really know too much about, what happened to Bane, and the fact that she sent assassins after Thrall. I think a lot of that stuff is going to come to light, and I think the way it's going to happen is she's going to kill Saurfang. I think that's what one of the cinematics is going to be. And that's going to either spark the rebellion against her, but that's going to be our catalyst into the next plot. I think that's going to be what turns the Horde against her, and that's going to be her mistake. And I believe, and I forget what it was, but before the storm, I believe she said this is a quote from her, I believe she says, "I'm not going to make the same mistakes Garrosh made," or something, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, no, overall, I don't think they're going to kill her off. I think Sylvanas does have a greater role in the storyline, but and again, I do find her actually really interesting as a antagonist or a anti-hero. I don't think she's fit to be war chief, and I've mentioned this in many, many videos and podcasts. But that doesn't really affect my love for the character. I actually do like Sylvanas. I have 2 posters of her in my room. So that's just my take, but whichever one of you wants to take it first. If you want to reply to what I said or say your thoughts. But
I think that Sylvanas is... I think that she's in something of a 3-act kind of anti-hero's journey, in a sense. Because we started out with the little sprinklings of everything in Legion, where, of course, she became war chief in the first place. We didn't see all that much of her aside from her plot in Stormheim, but she was up to something pretty significant, trying to gain the ability to raise more undead, the whole struggle with Gen, and thankfully she did not succeed in that. Mm-hmm. And, of course, her deal with Helya, which we still don't know the details on. So that's kind of her starting point. And now we're having whatever the next stage of her plan is in a political sense. And I think that it's all going to accumulate in some big master plan reveal that she has, mm-hmm. That will take place in the expansion after this. And that will probably conclude it, and that would make something of a interesting 3-act story structure.
I could definitely see that. I mean, you brought up a good point right there too with Helya. I didn't really shed light on that, but I think that definitely, like you said, is definitely going to be a big part of her end game, because they wouldn't just introduce something like that in Legion and then forget about it.
It almost seems like too much plot for them to shove into the end of Battle for Azeroth to properly explain everything. It feels like it would take going into another expansion, perhaps, to really develop everything fully if they tell the story right.
I mean, if Sylvanas does get booted out of the Horde, who else will she turn to? She doesn't have the Horde to back her up, so it would make sense for her to turn to Halia, who we know is still around. She isn't dead. Like, you know, we have Raikou, who laughs in our face. Like, you thought Halia was actually dead? Which you kind of think Odin would say something. Like,
You cannot kill death.
But it's really weird that like Odin didn't do anything to like go like, yeah, Hallie's dead for good. No, she's still around, and I think Odin knows that, and it's weird. I think Odin just wanted to be free, and he'll deal with Halia later. I don't know, but I feel like Halia did escape him, and I do think that Sylvanas would go to Halia afterwards.
Now,
But I have my own thoughts I'll elaborate on shortly.
do you think there'll be some loyalists that go with Sylvanas? Because obviously,
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a lot of the Forsaken are very loyal to her, like in the lore. I know there's
I
some
think-
that aren't, but
I'm sure there'll be a sub-faction of some kind. Like, I think it'd be really cool if, like... I feel like this would be, like, a really interesting thing for, like, the Horde to get. But, like, there'd be, like, a Sylvanas... Like, you know how, like, Rathian, he had his own little reputation?
yeah.
But, like, I feel like it'd be adding that in, where you can go to war with that reputation, especially if you sided against her in BFA. So, like, in the next expansion, there's a Sylvanas faction. And if you sided with Sylvanas, she'll be like, oh, I remember how much you helped me in trying to defeat them, but we failed. But since you're still loyal with me, come party with me. We're gonna, you know, go against them. And then I'm sure there'll be like an opposite side where like maybe you're working with a member of the Horde like Bane or Thrall or someone. Maybe Zakan, you know? Maybe Zakan's finally rising up the ranks. He's like, I'll never forgive Sylvanas for what she did to Sarfang. Like we said, we keep saying that, you know, Zakan might witness Sarfang get killed by Sylvanas, which would be tragic for everybody who likes Sarfang.
Oh man, I'm gonna be so
we could
sad.
have
I'm
So
sure.
we could have a return of the warring reputations. That hasn't been a thing since BFA. I mean, since Burning Crusade, has it?
I don't
I think so.
I think they had it in Wrath if you technically chose the
Or
first
you have to
card.
choose which faction you want to level with, and you can't get rep with both of them.
That's
No, I don't think they would do that. They never let you be neutral in your choices. I mean, I guess you could like I know that you can go back and forth technically, but as far as I understand it, most people go through the follow through of like siding with a certain character. So I think
I know I did.
part and that is like when Nathanos is like you know, with the whole thing with like Thrall, Bane, and Sarfang, and Lorthamar. If you choose to side with like Bane or Sarfang and such like that over Nathanos, I feel like that's going to be the peak point, basically.
Mhm.
Or maybe 8.2.5 will have a moment where you have to choose between helping Sylvanas escape or, you know, going after her. I feel
Well,
like that'd be kind of interesting.
I have to wonder, could there be two cinematics for the two choices players have been making
I
throughout the
thought-
expansion?
I thought about that too, and I feel like the 6-minute one would make sense for Horde and Alliance,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 3-minute one would be like for those that chose to side with Sylvanas.
Right.
But I don't know. I feel like the 3-minute one, like, I feel like the one way to reward this Sylvanas loyalist is basically going, like, here's a 3-minute cinematic that'll kind of, like, foreshadow what's to come next. And then, like, the 6-minute one is more, like, wrapping up things with the Alliance and Horde and BFA. Like,
Well-
hey, let's work together, buddies.
Well, that's the thing. I think, one, just to elaborate on what you said, having multiple faction choices would be an awesome addition to this game again. But what you said right there with rewarding players, I think it's going to be... I think some players might feel cheapened if they don't get anything out of making those choices at the end of the expansion, even if it's something minor. I just think...
I feel like it's definitely going to happen though. I feel like because like I think ideally Blizzard wanted everyone to choose Sarfang and not Sylvanas, especially when you have all these cinematics that are like glorifying Thrall and Sarfang and Bane as a
Right?
positive thing, and they're making Sylvanas clearly a negative thing. So
Mhm.
I don't think it would make much sense to kind of like, you know, Sylvanas was a positive thing in BFA. You should choose her. Like, they have blatantly made it look like she is not the way to go. And, I mean, I'm still baffled people don't think she won't turn against you. Like, especially when like in Warcraft 3, like when she worked with Garithos and even the likes of a Dreadlord, like not Garithos, Veramothras was like, you're acting more like a Lord.
I was just saying
Gyarados is
Gyarados.
just as bad.
Yeah.
But like Garithos got backstabbed by Sylvanas when they were working together, but no one was really shocked by that.
Yeah. I mean, she stated in the beginning of, the storm, she wants to march into Stormwind and make everyone undead. She basically wants everyone in the world to be undead. And don't think for a moment that just because you side with her that she's going to let you keep on living or let your corpse rest in peace if you die before she gets you. If anything, she might consider you worthy of receiving my gift or something, because that's the way she thinks.
Undead Pandaren would be interesting.
I think she views the living as too of a wild card, really, because we have emotions, we feel regret, we feel things that she no longer does. We feel pain, we feel hunger, we feel thirst, and so
she's got an Ultron state of mind, sort of.
Yeah,
I think so. I think she does kind of have that look on life. Like they said in the Warbringers video, she's literally warring life.
Which could make an interesting concept if, I don't know later on, because, the magic that druids draw from, and maybe could infuse a couple other things, I'm not sure, is, literally called on the life spectrum on the cosmology chart, and wonder if that could have any impact or come into play if we do get something focused on death and Shadowlands, which is the polar opposite. Because I think in a couple different expansions, we've had themes that sort of showcase different classes. Like Cataclysm was obviously Shaman, largely at the center of it. Legion, it's all about demons, so demon hunters and warlocks kind of had a lot that they could play with there. I wonder if there could be something where you have Shadow Priests would fit into the Shadowlands quite well, but also kind of fighting against any bad Shadow stuff. You could have Druids taking a step up their life magic.
In Cataclysm, they really didn't have an exact focus on Shaman. I get what you're saying, but
it was pretty big though. I feel
but it wasn't as big as a focus as Demon Hunters.
Or Wrath of the Lich King with Paladins and Death Knights.
Yeah,
exactly.
I guess that's one way to look at it, but I feel I don't know. I feel like they emphasized more on goblins and worgans in Cataclysm. That was a race experience.
True.
Same with monks and Pandaren. They kind of combined the two for Mists, which I thought was a neat little thing, because that was the one and only time they did that, where they added a race and a class.
Oh man, I would love it if they did that again at some point. But
I feel like that's the best. I feel like that's the way they're gonna do allied races though now. They're gonna just be we're gonna keep doing allied races, but here's a new class, like Tinker or something.
Right? So not to keep pushing the conversation forward, but I'd like to actually move on to a different character. And Sylvanas will still be involved.
Her shadow shall loom over everything.
Sylvanas is gonna be brought up even years from this video and other videos. But we've touched on him briefly. Let's talk about Saurfang. First off, I am hopeful we'll get another CGI cinematic, because the way the cycles worked. I've absolutely loved all of them. My favorite being Safe Haven, this expansion. That's one of my favorite WoW cinematics of all time. Just there's so much
of all time. Wow.
Yeah, I honestly there's just so many. There's a lot of shots that I really liked, but I do think, like I said earlier in the video, Saurfang is going to meet his end in most likely 8.2.5, and that'll spark the rebellion further. And if he doesn't meet his end next patch and they do 8.3, I think he'll die there. I love the character to death. I honestly, one of my favorite moments. Yeah, on it. Oh gosh. One of my favorite moments.
You're the one who's killing him.
No. One of my favorite moments in WoW, was honestly Wrath of the Lich King, when you have to fight his son, because I didn't know about the dungeon journal or anything back then, so I didn't have any idea. And then when I fought him, I was like, oh shit. But no, I'm gonna be heartbroken to see his character go. He's been one of my favorite orcs for many, many years, and I do think this is the most appropriate time to allow him to live. Or die, I'm sorry. And if he does
Wow.
die, and technically they do a Shadowlands expansion, we might see him soon, but... yeah, that's something we could talk about another time, but... yeah, that's just what I think they're going to do with Sarfang's character. Is he going to die in front of Zakan? I think so, because of that emphasis.
They did give Zakan an updated model, and specifically in the next patch, so it would make sense that they would focus on Zakan and also Sarfang in that patch. I especially think that there's going to be like sort of a patching of the torch between Zakan and Sarfang. I also think there's going to be kind of a passing the torch between him and Thrall, because originally Thrall placed Sarfang in charge of the orcs while he was MIA and, you know, trying to live a life out in Outlands. But I do think that one of the reasons why Sarfang pulled Thrall back was to become war chief again, or at least become the orc leader. I know that, like, you know, they have like a brief conversation where he's like, I thought you would at least help, you know, us with Sylvanas. I do think that they might do some sort of character growth between him and Thrall, where Thrall should be war chief again, even if he doesn't. If he was, you know, he was hesitant at first, but I think he's slowly kind of growing back into it. Maybe.
I think so too. I second that.
I kind of want to see what it'd be like when Thrall and Zakan meet for the first time.
I don't know why.
I never thought about that.
I just picture a father-son relationship with that for some reason.
Really?
I don't know why. Like, just like their interactions, like being like, "You're a young member of the Horde" or something. It reminds me of myself. I don't know. Something silly like that.
I feel like we'd have more of an interaction between Thrall and Anduin. We haven't had Thrall and Anduin interact in years since Wrath.
I would
think
like
that'd be
that.
really, I prefer that, honestly. I like Zakan, but I feel like it'd be more interesting if you focus on Anduin and Thrall, because Thrall saw Anduin as very wise for his age, especially when like Anduin was butting heads with Garrosh, and you have to remember, I think Garrosh was the oldest one in that room, besides maybe Rhaegar.
Yeah, I think so.
Because like Garrosh is older than Thrall, and like I think Varian is older than Thrall too. So I think Garrosh and Varian were around the same age or something. But again, I feel like it'd be really great to see some interactions between all the rebel characters. Especially, I really want to see like Sarfang interacting with the rebels.
Me too.
Like Rexar, Voss, maybe Rokon. We know like a certain amount of characters who are definitely rebels.
Do you guys think we'll get another scenario similar to the Underhold one next patch for Sarfang?
I think we will.
I would kind of hope so to keep up the pattern.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they use scenarios typically for big quests, so I think that it would make sense that they would use the scenario system for this whole thing is like a big old secret. None of us know what's going on, and Blizzard doesn't want us to know. So some sort of bomb is going to be dropped, and hopefully it's nothing like Theramore or Teldrassil.
Dun 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 dun. Those jazz hands. No, just kidding.
I wouldn't be shocked if Sylvanas is like, "Let's blight bomb Orgrimmar. If I can't have it, no one can."
I will scream if that happens.
Hey, at least gives us a reason.
New capital city, everyone.
The Wandering Isle for the Horde.
I don't think they would change the capital city of Orgrimmar that soon, though, because they just added the mage, not mage tower, the mage room into Orgrimmar recently. But I could definitely see them updating Orgrimmar, though. It's not like bad looking now. In fact, I'd say it looks really good considering most cities. But I don't know. I wouldn't mind it if they updated it some more. Especially if it gets blight bombed. I think that basically he's going to challenge Sylvanas to a Makara, and, you know, Sylvanas will either deny it or accept it. I don't think it really matters, but he'll go into the fight, and Sylvanas will do something that's clearly cheating, and the rest of the Horde will see that, and they will see her kill Sarfang in a dishonorable fashion, and people who have been really blind to Sylvanas and, like, you know, the way I view Sylvanas, basically, is she's been peppering everyone up, giving them exactly what they want. And I think that in doing that, like, they're going to realize, oh my god, Sarfang just died. And this is kind of an interesting thing about Sylvanas. She's done a really good job at painting most of the rebels as bad by not feeding them all the information. Like with Bane, she had specific people brought to see Bane get arrested because they wanted them to view it as a negative thing that he helped out the Alliance.
Right.
But a majority of the Horde leaders were not okay with that. Aside from Gaia-Ra and Gallywix, and I think Gallywix is just indifferent in general. But Gaia-Ra, the leader of the Mag'har, was like, yeah, good for Sylvanas for doing that, which makes sense for their culture, because, the War Chief can do no wrong in their world, because they haven't dealt with a Garrosh, they haven't dealt with a Black Hand or a Ner'zhul or anything like that, like we have. But, I think Sylvanas has done a good job at painting the rebels as a bad thing, and that was something Garrosh failed to do. A lot of the rebels were non-orcs. They were, even with the even with the orcs, there was plenty of orcs that were already opposing Garrosh in their own city. Like, you had citizens that were like, we don't want to do this, and they're being used as like meat shields basically by the Mag'har Kor'kron, or just the Kor'kron that are bigger and stronger than the citizens. So you had that sort of dealing with Garrosh. I think Sylvanas has done a really good job at painting the rebels as bad and not good, especially when you have like the Sun Reavers who had to, basically face Jaina, Thrall, and Bane, and Sarfang, and they killed most of them, or they got beat up pretty bad. But you have certain factions and certain races who definitely despise the rebels now because they aren't getting the full story. And I do think that such a moment like Sylvanas showing her true colors and killing Sarfang might open up some of their eyes, maybe. And I think Sarfang understands that, and he's willing to take one for the team, basically.
So, are you saying this would basically be a version of the Mak'gora scene of Duratan versus Gul'dan from the Warcraft movie, except this would actually work? Because it didn't work in the
I think it would
be like, Sylvanas cheats as she uses death magic to drain him or something.
I think that she would just basically like do something that would be cheating, like maybe having a Thanos snipe at Sarfang when they're
you're right. That would be the most dishonorable thing. Like, not even killing it yourself, having someone else do it from afar. That'd be even worse than Garrosh's, and he didn't even know his blade was poisoned and was upset about it when it happened with Cairn.
Right? I could see that, like, she's about to lose or something, then the Thanos snipes him or something. I don't know. And then everybody gets pissed.
Sylvanas isn't like terrible at melee combat, but like if you notice in the Gen fight, Gen is definitely better at melee combat. Sarfang would be better at melee combat.
She's a ranged fighter. She's got a bow all the time.
If Sarfang does get a good hit on her, she definitely has her Banshee abilities, which I definitely think she would use too, which could also be viewed as dishonorable. And she also has poison arrows. She has void arrows, like.
Oh god, I can see it now. We're gonna get the Thrall cheated Mak'gora videos all over again with this if this happens.
I mean, at least this time. Well, I did a whole video on that. I don't want to repeat myself here on that whole situation.
Right, I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
So long as they kind of clarify what is allowed in the Mak'gora and what isn't, which I think Sarfang would, I think that'll be good.
Yeah, and I think that the best way would be the extra agent coming in, because the point of the Mak'gora is it's the combat between the two individuals, whatever powers they have, and the whole sniping from a distance, that would be a definite whatever way you think of a Mak'gora cheating or not, whatever your answer to the Thrall thing is, that would be a no question that dishonorable aspect.
Yeah, and I think that if, Sylvanas was on the ropes, I'm sure Nathanos, regardless if Sylvanas ordered it or not, would cut in, because it's basically the Mak'gora is designed basically as a way to rightfully get the title of War Chief. So if Sarfang won the duel, he would get the title.
Right.
If Sarfang, if he wasn't old, would be badass War Chief.
I mean, yeah. I stand by that. If Sarfang was a little bit younger, he'd be fine. It's just the issue that he is old that I have.
Yeah.
I mean, Thrall had the exact same problem. That's why he had to turn to Garrosh. He's like, if only Sarfang Jr. had survived, he would have been perfect. Sarfang Sr. is good, but he's too old. So Garrosh is next best.
That might have been why he didn't choose Karen too. But I think
Yeah.
the personal reason is he had to have an orc because the Horde at that time, especially the orcs, weren't ready for a non-orc war chief.
I thought the orcs viewed Garrosh as like a war hero at this time too.
They did.
From Northrend.
Mhm.
Like, they loved Garrosh. Garrosh was a big hit with a lot of the younger orcs. I don't know about the older orcs. I think the older orcs kind of were a little bit skeptical regarding him. But yeah, I definitely think that should Sarfang die and he dies a dishonorable way, it'll definitely push more and more people into the side of the rebels. I think one of the biggest issue with the rebels this time is they have more of the alliance's support than Garrosh.
And
the rebels against Garrosh did.
Well, and we've been in a bloody war with the alliance too for the whole expansion.
Yeah, that's
true.
That's why this makes it so much harder on the rebels this time around. Plus, Blizzard blatantly made it so people can choose between Sylvanas or the rebels this time around, which is different from how they took it with Garrosh. They didn't like go, yeah, you can go with Garrosh. No, they didn't.
Yeah. This could end up being a bit more of a fledged civil war if enough people chose to side with Sylvanas.
I do wonder if they'll do a sort of... I don't think that they're going to do a split horde after this. I feel like they're going to end it.
Mm-hmm. You think so?
I think they're going to end the whole, supporting Sylvanas thing with this move. I just don't know how they're going to... I just hope that it isn't like, oh, Sylvanas was right. We just got to work together with her. And the Alliance are like, yeah. Like, I don't like that ending. That sounds like a really bad way of handling.
They specifically ended before the storm with Anduin being the one to give up on Sylvanas. Anduin, the guy who can see the good in anyone even more than Luke could see it in Vader,
Bane and Anduin are probably like the nicest, most wholesome leaders within their factions. And if you get on their bad side, which in War Crimes it already was, and Moxie even agrees.
Aww. Moxie.
I apologize, everyone. She's really noisy right now.
She's a member of the Campfire. She's voicing Skoll.
Perfect.
But I that's what I think about Sarfang. I just want to elaborate that a little bit more on how I think he'll die.
No, that was good.
If he doesn't die, I think he just deserves to be retired or continue to be leader of the orcs. Not war chief, but definitely keep him as a leader of the orcs. But I think the writing's on the wall that they're going to end him. As much as I'm usually the one that's against killing off horde leaders, I do think that they're going to do it with Sarfang, unfortunately.
Deserves to rest in peace. And hopefully not to get raised up like Nazgûl.
Oh, man.
Speaking of Sarfang dying, though, this is something I wanted to bring up, too. And this is actually spoilers related. So if you guys care about spoilers, which if you're watching this, I don't know why you're watching it, because we are spoilery. There is some data mined information of Eitrig dying with new sound files added into this patch that was encrypted. That someone digged it up that Eitrig has a new death sound, and it's very recent. So it's not one of those things where they they usually do have NPCs who all have their own death sound, even though they're not going to die. But it's usually just like a quest or for the Horde or for the Alliance achievement, where like Anduin dies, but he's not actually permanently dead. And they have the same thing with Eitrig, but they added it in rather than just it's new. That's the thing. So either like Eitrig has the potentiality to die in a quest, or in like G Firepaw where it's not canon, where he dies.
Or a Warfront.
I do wonder. Or a Warfront, yeah. Which, Eitrig does have a death sound from the Warfront from Arathi, but no, I don't think he does. I'm not sure about that one. I don't think he does because he kneels. He doesn't actually die, which is what happens to all the commanders. But yeah, so Eitrig might also die. So if Eitrig and Sarfang both die, this is just further proof that, they might be pushing Thrall into the seat of the Orc leader at least, because those are the only three who would really do it. Besides maybe Rexar.
That would be sad if we lost Eitrig, honestly.
It would be. I mean, that's like...
He's even older than Sarfang, isn't he?
I think so.
They're either the same age or he's older. I think they're the same age, if I'm being honest. But then again, they changed Sarfang's hair from gray to... No, they changed it from white to gray. Eitrig's, I think, as white. So, I think Eitrig might be older.
We might just kneel over from old age when his time comes or something.
Nah, Drek'Thar's still alive. I don't think... I think orcs can live long, it's just that they usually don't.
I forgot about that.
Drek'Thar's still alive. He's at least 100.
He's the blind one, right?
He's the blind one in a wheelchair right now. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, orcs have wheelchair technology.
So, do you guys want to get to the Alliance side of the spectrum?
Yeah,
I'm
I
game.
think we've said enough about Sarfang and Eitrig and whatnot. Moxie, I know you're excited about the Alliance.
I thought Moxie was saying she doesn't like the Alliance.
No, she's...
No, she's excited because she's a cat, and the alliance symbol is the lion, a cat.
Exactly.
So she identifies with the lions.
So, let's start. I mean, we've talked about Anduin a little bit so far, but I'm actually kind of kabuffled at what I think they're gonna do with Anduin, because I have no idea. I mean, I think maybe they'll going forward.
I can probably offer some light. Ha ha ha.
So, Skoll, what do you think's gonna happen to Anduin?
So, one of the things that Blizzard kind of hinted at was that the Alliance aren't going to deal with any splintering like the Horde is right now. But I think something's going to happen at the end of BFA where someone like Tyrande, you know, like at the end of Mista Pandaria where Jaina was like, dismantle the Horde. Jaina's no longer going to do that. You no longer have Jaina doing that. Jaina's buddies with Bane, buddies with Sarfang, buddies with mostly everybody, except maybe Talanji and Gaia and Sylvanas, obviously, and, you know, Thanos. I'm kind of wondering...
Talanji hates her.
Right now she hates her, but at the same time that can easily... You know, they don't really have it confirmed that Jaina's the one that kills Rastakhan, but she's kind of like the face of the blame for it, really. But I do wonder about that sometimes. Anyways, I was gonna say, like, I wonder if how Rexar and Jaina feel about one another now, because it's a little bit more complicated now between them. But
True.
Anyways, regarding that, I think that we might see a splinter after the events with Sylvanas. I think Tyrande and some of the members, like Gen, maybe. I don't know about Gen. Gen's been respecting Anduin's decisions lately, so I don't think it's gonna be Gen. But I do think it's going to be Tyrande, who is like, I am completely against you permitting the Horde to continue to exist like your father did. Your father promised us to end the Horde. You're going against his wishes, yada, yada, yada. I think something like that's going to go down. And I think Tyrande is basically going to split her off. Because that would be interesting, because you would have, the Horde would have a splinter off with Sylvanas as a faction. And I think they could do the same with Tyrande. So it wouldn't just be the Horde that has that. So I think Anduin will be dealing with that. And also, I didn't get to say this, by the way, regarding Sylvanas. So I might as well say it here. I think that the Horde and Alliance will successfully destroy Sylvanas' body. Or damage it, really. So I think that she might be a Banshee. Like, we'll see more of her Banshee form next expansion, maybe. Or maybe she'll have to find a new body.
Idea.
I like that idea too.
Because I think that there was some data mined. There might have. I don't know if this is true or not. I saw it somewhere on Twitter that there was a new data mined Banshee model. So maybe that'll just be for the fight between Sylvanas, where she gets knocked out of her body, or she does some sort of Banshee trick or something. I don't know, but I do think that.
I can't wait to see what the actual fight's gonna be like against her if they go that route.
I do think they said that they weren't going to do a raid. So maybe like the Warfront, which has been floating around, it'll be an Alliance and Horde Warfront against Sylvanas and her forces. It'll be the first time where a Warfront is more of an instance sort of thing, kind of like the Broken Shore as far as I view it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what they're going to take the Warfront route. Instead of it making like a battleground for PvEers, it's going to be more of a giant lore chunk scenario like Myths did.
That would be really, really cool.
I feel like that's what they're going to take scenarios going forward, because it makes no sense for the Horde and the Alliance to fight one another, players versus computers and whatnot, you know. I don't think they're going to do that going forward, and I do think that they're going to take some of the things from BFA and put it in the next expansion. I know a lot of people didn't like Ion Expeditions, but I feel like they can continue doing those. If they don't want to do those,
I
that's
would
fine,
welcome.
but...
I would welcome it, man. Like I think those have the potential to evolve into something really fun if done right.
I feel like they just need to let us explore afterwards. That's my only request, because as a machinimator, I would really like to explore those areas, because they do. I know they're reused assets, but some of them do look really beautiful.
Snow Blossom Island, I think it's called, or whatever. The Pandaren.
But I think we want to keep on the topic of both Anduin and whatnot.
Yeah, I want to know. Do you think that Anduin and Sylvanas are going to have any other face-to-face confrontations?
Yes.
I think
they haven't gone so well in the going by the record, you know.
I think
they kind of walked into a trap.
I'm not really... The thing with Anduin is I do wonder if they're going to strip away his more... I don't want to say naive stuff, but like... I feel like they're going to harden him a little bit more after this, because Sylvanas kind of just proved to him you can't, you know, win a war against someone that'll walk all over you. There are just certain people that you can't make peace with. I feel like that's what they're pushing for between Sylvanas and Anduin. Like, he already admitted it. There's no way that Sylvanas can be redeemed. So...
Yeah, not so much. It's not undoing his character progression, because he's had quite a bit of developing this, you know, his relationship with his father, studying under Velen and all that stuff over a long period of time, but a refining into realizing that there's different ways sometimes to pragmatically apply this. There was that, what was it called? Son of the Wolf or something, a comic at the beginning of Legion, where he was struggling with, I'm a peaceful person, but now I have to lead some fighting, and how do I reconcile that?
They kind of foreshadow what might be the future of Anduin, although I'm honestly betting on that's just a vision. I don't think we're ever going to see older man Anduin anytime soon.
The vision of Illidan with feathery wings didn't come true, so I don't put much stock in those right now.
Yeah, I feel like that also requires either a time skip or Anduin spending time in space. And one of my older theories was maybe like Anduin gets sent off into space on the Exodar with Velen for some reason. Maybe, I don't know why they'd go into space though, to be fair. But I think that after all of these events, they're gonna have Anduin, Bane, or Thrall, or whoever is the leader of the Horde, kind of setting up more peace talks and more interactions between their two factions, because I feel like the fault of Mista Pandaria was they didn't really focus too much on that. They kind of just said, we're gonna do this stuff, but they never, you know, really did. I feel like after BFA, they're gonna focus on more Alliance and Horde interactions. Like, we're gonna see more interactions like at the Wrathgate between Dranosh and Bolvar, where they're kind of like having humor, kind of like Gimli and Legolas, really, you know, like they're
Oh, that would be awesome.
They're kind of, you know, they're in competition with one another, you know, like Dranosh was like, Bolvar was like, I was wondering when you were showing up, and Dranosh was like, I'm not gonna let the Alliance have all the fun today. Yeah. I want more of that, and I would love to see it between larger characters like Bane and Anduin, Thrall and Anduin, you know, maybe even Rexar and Maiev. I don't know. Like, I'm just throwing out random characters, really. I would love to see more of that.
Well, I think
Agreed.
I think that's the direction the storyline's definitely going in.
That'd be great for next expansion, honestly.
I actually like the idea of us being able to work with the other faction, not directly. Like, I think there still should be a choice and some sort of divide. But I do like the idea of us potentially being able to party up with, like, Alliance players to do dungeons and shit like that, you know?
Like our Alliance friends, you know? Like, not everyone wants to play as a specific race. Like, I don't want to play as a, you know, a human I want to play my Horde boys. I want to play my Horde races.
I-
And all my friends are playing on their Alliance tunes. It's like, what's up with that? But it'd be an interesting feature where they would allow you, if you go a specific route. It'd be really cool if they rewarded the people who went the Sarfang route and like the Sylvanas route. No, you're part of the PvP Horde. Like, I don't want them to do that though. Technically, too, I feel like they should just let you choose like by talking to some NPC, and it's just like the canon is you are working with the Alliance now, but like the non-canon is PvP stuff. I feel like that's what they should just do, if I'm being honest. But at the same time,
Yeah, because they can't let it get in the way of game features.
Yeah, at the same time, I don't mind the idea that Sylvanas and Tyrande are basically at war with one another, and like you can help them if you want, but I don't know. That's kind of iffy with like. I feel like Sylvanas and Tyrande are going to be painted in the negative light, so I don't see them. I don't know. It's weird. It'd be cool though.
Tyrande will become interesting. Yay!
Right? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I hate Tyrande.
I mean, I don't like her either.
I just think she's boring, and she's like, I don't know, just some of the stuff that she says.
Now
like,
she's
even,
the boring emo high school.
even before Teldrassil, like I just never liked her. Like, oh god, her and Valsharan Suramar was like, get this character out of here, man. Oh my god. But I used to, and the funny thing is I liked her in Warcraft 3, but that's a whole nother rant. Yeah, I never cared for a lot of the way she acted in World of Warcraft. I understand why she's pissed now, and this is a little bit off topic, but since we've kind of covered the three major characters, I think a really cool interaction, Skoll, you and I talked about this, but next expansion, if they keep some factions or some races opposing each other, a Zandalari conflict with the Night Elves would be very, very cool, I think.
That does sound very interesting, especially the fact that the Night Elves are evolved trolls and everything, and the Zandalari are the highest of the current troll civilization. I wonder if that knowledge became much more widespread. There'd probably be a lot of denial and angst about it on both sides, not wanting to believe they had anything in common with each other.
Just the fact that they don't like the each other. I mean, they could essentially, if they want to carry over. I was talking to Skoll about this too. If they want to, I hope that they continue to carry over important characters from like BFA into the next expansion, from Legion to the next expansion. But like, if they wanted to potentially give Talanji a story arc, if say we go to the Dragon Isles, say there's an Alliance versus Horde storyline in one zone, a minor one, yeah, between them and Tyrande or something, but it's just something to build some sort of conflict. So, because I imagine she's still gonna be pissed at the Alliance after BFA, regardless of what happens.
Well, yes, they did kind of raid her home and kill her father.
Ransack her home, yeah.
Technically unprovoked.
Yeah.
Technically.
There's also the whole situation that we brought up, like, I think it was the last podcast? Wow, if that's the case, then that was a while ago.
3 weeks ago, it's just crazy.
Oh god, Box, why? But there was like the whole case of the Blood Moon and the Emerald Moon. I'm really curious if there's any relationship between those two and like a loon. Because if that's the case, then Bwan Samdi and a loon might have some beef, which would...
Dude, imagine the shot though of the moon split in half. Like one is a Blood Moon and one is the Loon Moon, and then they're just going at
That'd
it.
be a good cinematic.
Oh god, that would be so badass. Please, Blizzard.
Might be worth having 6 minutes devoted to it, maybe?
It's not gonna happen I don't think it's gonna happen in
yeah, you're right.
expansion. It'll probably happen maybe next one if they focus on the Shadowlands, which they might. I'm not gonna get too into that here. I don't know about the whole Shadowlands thing. It could happen.
Yeah, it's a bit off topic from what
That's something I'd like to do another episode on, is like what the next expansion is gonna be. So right now we're around, I believe, 55 minutes. Or we're at 48 minutes, but I think, do you guys have any like final subjects you'd like to cover? There anything else you'd want to say?
Well,
okay, go ahead, I guess.
Well, I was going to say, we're talking about the war itself. How do you think the source of the war is going to end? What's going to happen with all the Azerite? Is it going to just like all get sucked into the ground and there's no machinery on either side and it's back to a previous status quo, which seems kind of cheap? Or is it going to be that they have to have some negotiations or some way that they're going to deal with the Azerite? Remember, it's kind of the thing that kicked off this whole conflict, gave them excuses to attack each other.
So I think, to answer your question, I don't know how they're going to resolve that issue. I do think that Azerite is related to the old gods in some way. I'm not sure how, but I feel like it's been planted there for us to fight each other for some stupid reason. I don't know how they're going to resolve that, but yeah.
Dun dun dun.
I don't really like the whole idea that Azerite corrupts. I mean, I definitely get that. And, like, that was, like, something that I brought up at the very beginning of BFA, where, like, I thought Azerite might be something like the Lord of the Rings ring, you know, the one ring to rule them all and all that, and corrupts people by holding it. But, if I'm being honest, I think that the way they're gonna get rid of Azerite is just by healing Azeroth. So when Azeroth is completely healed by, you know, the sword wounds. Because I feel like, you know, this whole entire expansion has been us trying to heal it, and in 8.2, they kind of pushed that. I'm just thinking, like, you know, they have, like, all the dragon fights and the dragon aspects working together to heal Azeroth. I'm guessing either they're going to continue that in the next expansion, so maybe Azerite will continue to be a thing in the next expansion, but I don't see them using the Heart of Azeroth as a thing in the next expansion, so I feel like it'd be smart to kind of have Azerite kind of just dilute as it was before, like with Galliwix. Because basically they had it, you know, go from blue and yellow to red, which is what happened to Galliwix's staff, his, like, little scepter, his little bowl, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's what they're going to do. I think they're just going to have all the Azerite turn to red. It's useless. Kind of like Azerite power, you know, after the expansion where, like, you get, like, a little thing of gold.
Yeah, that would be the best way to.
That would be an easy way to get rid of
the
it.
Physical Azerite that's not getting sucked back into the ground, but it basically becomes depowered. Do you think that maybe there could be a scenario like when we absorbed the thing with our artifact weapons at the end of Legion, where we, like, surrender the Heart of Azeroth and, like, give it back to the planet or something?
I feel like, I mean, this is, like, one of the biggest things that I think could happen as the end cinematic of BFA, which could be why it's 6 minutes long. And this goes along with it. Because, like, if 8.2.5 is the end of BFA, which I'm not saying it is, if it is, though, then maybe BFA ends with Azeroth waking up and she takes out the sword. I still think that's a possibility. I think it'd be a really cool way to end BFA with because, like, how do you top Legion with Sargeras showing up? You show what Azeroth looks like. I feel like that's, like, the perfect way to end BFA, personally. I know that's, like, a really big thing for people to see, and maybe there's a reason why Azeroth goes away as a Titan, or she's involved, because we see, like, we've seen that Titans can shrink themselves down to, like, the size of like on Argus, you see how, like, Titans aren't as big. I feel like they might do that with Azeroth.
Yeah.
Maybe Azeroth herself
could be like character Argus the Unmaker, kind of,
but with more personality.
Yeah.
I that's my biggest gripe with Argus. He had no personality, sadly.
Yeah, it felt like a real disappointment for the end boss of an entire expansion was one that I didn't even know existed for most of it, you know?
I mean, I think the audio drama did some justice, but I do think they could have done a better job. I mean, I feel like Kil'jaeden and Archimonde would have been a better duo.
Agreed.
As the end boss of Legion, and then Sargeras kind of shows up, you know, as, like, you know, I do think they handled Sargeras really well, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are, you know, they're like, I wanted to fight Sargeras, but
he would have wiped the floor with us. That would have
lowered him down way too much if we could have defeated him.
I don't think, because, like, Sargeras was, like, the big baddie for a very long time, and he's still out there. If you have, like, I think Chris Metzen was the one who said the heroes of Azeroth shouldn't defeat Sargeras. But I think it'd be really cool, though, if, like, Azeroth is kind of, like, becomes her own character, and she journeys with... It'd be kind of interesting if she's the one that keeps the Alliance and Horde from fighting one another. Like, you guys warred on me for this long. I'm done with that. Like, I feel like it'd be really cool if they have her be this snarky, adult/teenager that is a Titan, because I think she's technically the youngest Titan. I could be wrong about that. She could be the oldest. She could be the youngest. I think it.
Now, everybody, stop fighting. Let's have ice cream and unite against the old cuts.
I feel like it'd be interesting though if they have Azeroth as her own character. Now, I don't know what would happen to the planet. I would hope that the planet would be fine. I think it'd be really cool that would kind of give us a reason to go like to the Titan shells. Like, like when a Titan is born, they were born from a planet. So like, I think it'd be really cool if you could like go back to the planet of where like Sargeras was born from, and you could.
That would be so cool.
That would be badass.
But that's probably a topic for another day. But that is my ideal ending for.
Make a note of that, Box. We need to have another talk about this.
We're gonna be having many more talks soon. But
that would be my ideal ending for BFA though. It might not be in 8.2.5, but we know that the war ends. So I'm really curious how 8.2.5 is going to end.
I have another idea for, that would kind of tie the different threads of BFA together, because we've got war campaign, which is the chief thing we're talking about here. And then, of course, we have the old god stuff in the background and the trying to heal the planet. What if there were something, I'm kind of thinking of that little cinematic in Pandaria where there's the fighting and then the Shah breaks loose or something. What if you had something kind of like that where there's a battle, maybe even near the sword, and for whatever reason, like suddenly with that as the epicenter, something emerges and like the Black Empire is reborn, starts to spread and rise up or something.
I know there was a lot of speculation about that before BFA came out. There's a lot of people that were convinced that was going to be something that could happen, and quite possibly, I mean, with the way 8.2 ended, that's still a possibility. We could have a fight against Sylvanas and Enzoth rises up or something. At 8.3.
Not saying it's going to happen, but it would tie all the main plots of the expansion together. So it's an interesting idea.
Rathian even says this is the only information we really have for 8.2.5, but in his quest line, he even says that he will help us in the real battle for Azeroth against N'Zoth. So
roll
I
credits.
do believe that they note like 8.2.5. I forget where. But like, with N'Zoth, N'Zoth basically hasn't broken out yet. So that makes me wonder if they're either saving that for an expansion or they're saving it for a patch. I have no idea if BFA is ending with 8.2.5 or 8.3 yet.
I was going to say, I think we know for sure at the very least now that this is the end of the faction war.
Yes. But as far as N'Zoth goes, we don't know yet, which I think... if I had to choose between ending the faction war or ending N'Zoth, I'd prefer the faction war.
Me too.
And then we could focus on N'Zoth in the next expansion, because I feel like that'd be more interesting, especially with the Black Empire premise.
Yeah, I agree. So, I'd like to, because we're at an hour now, I think it'd be a good point to wind down, and we've had a lot of good discussion this episode. First thing I want to say, Goliath, thank you for joining us this week. I'd love to have you on many more episodes.
My
in the
pleasure.
Future. Skoll, as usual. I know you love talking to me. Thank you for joining me as usual. If you guys have any plugs, like Goliath, I know you mentioned your Hearthstone blog.
Yes,
or not blog, it's for the website.
I'm a lore contributor to a Hearthstone website. It's relatively called Out of Cards. I strongly recommend that you check it out. And basically I write articles talking about the various legendary cards that are the actual characters from Warcraft, and explaining, this is how all these guys tie together, which is interesting if you're a Warcraft fan who wants to see which of your favorite characters are in Hearthstone cards, or if you're a Hearthstone fan who wants to know exactly how all these characters work together. So go and check out of Cards.
Very cool. I actually remember checking out a few of your articles on there that you posted on Skoll's Discord. So go check them out, guys. And also, Burrito Shorties, aka Skoll Shorties. Check him out on YouTube. He does some great lore videos. Great machinima. There's gonna be a Halloween machinima soon. Collaboration between a bunch of different people. I'm just doing one little segment in it, but the other guys make all the magic happen. I want to say one last thing. G Kai, if you're watching this, we miss you, man. We'll definitely have you on some future episodes as well soon. We hope you're feeling better. Do you have anything you want to say, Skoll?
I don't think so, but I'm really excited for the patch in 4 days, so expect reaction videos up whenever the cinematics drop, which will be... I do hope that they aren't, some people have speculated that they're the old soldier cinematics, like the Starfang cinematics, but I hope that...
That wouldn't make any sense.
I'd be sad.
I hope that's not the case. I don't think it is, but I'll look forward to those cinematics and what's going next in the story.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.